This podcast is not meant to be professional advice of any kind. It is meant to be informative and entertaining. If you make any changes to your life, see the appropriate professional before you do so. Welcome to Super Age. My name's David Stewart. I am the founder of Ageist and your host on the Super Age Show. We talk about how to live healthier, how to live longer, and how to be happier. And who doesn't want that? Today's show is brought to you by Inside Tracker, the dashboard to your inner health. Go to insidetracker.com/ageist, save 20% on all their products. The show is also brought to you by Element, LMNT. My favorite electrolyte mix. It's what I put in my water in the morning, and it's what I put in my water at the gym. Go to drinkelement.com/ageist and receive a free 8-serving sample pack with any purchase. Today's show is also brought to you by Timeline Nutrition with their breakthrough product, MitoPure, the first clinically tested urolithin A supplement, which is showing tremendous results for mitochondrial health. Go to timelinenutrition.com/ageist, use the code ageist at checkout, and save 10% off your first order of MitoPure. Welcome to episode 124 of the Super Age Podcast. This is going to be dropping on March the 8th, 2023. Today, I am back in the very, very snowy mountains of Park City, Utah. There's just an indescribable amount of snow here, and it's supposed to snow again, like, I don't know, a few feet again this coming weekend. And in the 10 days I was gone, it snowed 56 inches. And what that means is walking down a sidewalk is like walking down a canyon. The snow is like well overhead. And then in things like, the supermarket parking lot, the snow is, I don't know, like 20 feet high in these huge drifts. I've only been here for a few years, but the locals tell me this is the most snow that they've had in like 15 years. It's amazing. It's incredibly beautiful. And I was up on the hill today, and I got to say that being up on the hill pretty much every day, except when I'm in New York, you get to see the most amazing things, and you get to see the transition from day to day. So if you only go like one day every once in a while, it's just doesn't, it's, you sort of think like, oh, this is how it is all the time. But it changes, day to day and within the day. And it's just so beautiful. I feel so lucky to be up there. One of the guys I was on the chairlift today who came for just a couple of weeks of our master's ski racing program, he's an English fellow. And we were talking about, he's 60, and he said a lot of his friends back in the UK who are his age feel quite old, like they feel like they're not really capable of much, and all they feel they can do is, hang out in the pub. They feel that there aren't that many options. And he was quite adamant. He said, no, that's why I'm here doing this, because I know I can do other things. Like, I know I have this capacity. And I think there's something really interesting. We had a quick conversation about a study that got quite a bit of press a few years ago, where there was some elderly English gentlemen. I want to say they were in their like 80s. I know they were having trouble walking. And I don't know, there's like a dozen of them. And what they did was, in the place where they were living, they changed the decor to be, what it was like 60 years ago. And they were playing music from 60 years ago. And they found, of course, that these gentlemen were standing up straighter. They were walking quicker. They were, had much more lively conversations because it brought them back to where they were. Now, what that tells me is our behavior is really influenced by, how old we feel. And this idea that, and it's one of the reasons I started Ageist, that I really push against this idea that like we're limited at a certain age to do certain things. Most of, there are certain things we can't do, but most of it we can do. And we can do, reasonably well and with a great deal of enjoyment. And if we pursue these kind of things, we're going to be living, longer and healthier and probably happy. Like, I do not want to wake up tomorrow and think that the only option I have that day is to go hang out with my buddies at the pub. Like, I want a bigger life than that. And I know I can have a bigger life. I have a bigger life. So it was really interesting talking to this guy about how he's average sort of skier. And he was saying like, oh, this motivates me to work more on my strength training and my cardiovascular because you really needed to do this and you sort of do. And he was saying about how much doing this sort of thing, and by thing, I mean our ski racing program, it really brings one into the moment. So you're going with some velocity through gates that seem impossibly close on a hill that's, has some steepness to it, and how that it just brings you into the moment and how alive one feels. And, none of us are going to be on the World Cup. That's not going to be happening. We're not, we're not going to be in the Olympics. But that doesn't mean that we can't learn new things, that we can't move our bodies, that we can't improve our sense of balance and proprioception and, essentially brain health, because the most neurogenerative thing you can do is exercise. And, the amount of visual processing one does when one's doing this sort of thing and controlling one's body, all of this is firing all these neurons in our brains that maybe weren't wired that way before. And I got to say, like, there's a ski hill over a couple of canyons away from here called Alta, and I'm 64, and there are people in there that are easily 20, 30 years older than me. So that's my longevity program, ski. The first sponsor of today's show is Timeline Nutrition with their breakthrough product, MitoPure. We all know how important mitochondrial energy is, and especially maintaining muscle and strength as we age. Urolithin A, which is found in MitoPure, has been clinically proven to increase muscle strength and endurance with no other changes in lifestyle. Urolithin A is essentially upgrading your body's cellular power grid, giving your body the energy it needs to optimize. I've been using MitoPure for a few months now, and what I can tell you is there is a noticeable change in the way my muscles re-energize after I use them. What that means is, say I'm involved in some intense activity in the gym or maybe some sporting activity. Normally, the next time I did it, I would be, kind of tired. I would be sort of gassed out. That doesn't seem to happen with this. And all I can imagine is because my mitochondrial grid has essentially been upgraded, it's not just my muscles that are getting upgraded, it's all the other cells in my body because they're all powered by mitochondria. Go to timelinenutrition.com/ageist, use the code ageist at checkout, and save 10% off your first order of MitoPure. Second sponsor of today's show is Element, spelled LMNT. Element is an electrolyte drink that contains the exact ratios of the electrolytes sodium, magnesium, and potassium to optimize our cellular functioning for mental and physical performance. Most of us understand that, we need to stay hydrated. But what a lot of people don't realize is just pounding water isn't going to cut it. In order for our cells to function properly, they need sodium, potassium, and magnesium in the right doses. Element has perfected the balance. Now, of course, people with prehypertension or hypertension need to be careful about their sodium intake. But for most of us who are mindful about eating clean, unprocessed food most of the time, we may not be getting enough sodium, potassium, or magnesium. That's why I drink a packet of Element each day. If you'd like to try Element, go to drinkelement.com/ageist, that's DRINKLMNT.com/ageist, and receive a free 8-serving sample pack with any purchase. Let me know what your favorite flavor is. I'm into citrus salt. What's yours? A lot of you out there are concerned with brain health, and rightfully so. I believe the fourth leading cause of death in America has to do with Alzheimer's, if I remember correctly. On the show today, we've got Dr. Sanjeev Goel, who's been doing quite a bit of research on something called plasmapheresis, otherwise known as therapeutic plasma exchange, which has been showing really pretty amazing results for either stopping Alzheimer's in its tracks, or it seems to be in some cases actually reversing it. He's an expert on the topic, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to him Because what it sounds like from what I've learned about this technology is that the machines used aren't really all that complicated. They're very similar to dialysis machines. And I think once they get this dialed in, it could very well be that, every year you go for your physical and then you also essentially get your blood cleaned, which could have, really measurable impact on reducing your chances of getting Alzheimer's. So we're going to get with Dr. Sanjeev Goel in just a moment. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, right after my conversation with Sanjeev, we're going to do, just try this. It's one of those little tidbits that may help you make your life a little happier, a little healthier, right after my conversation with Sanjeev. We're going to get with Sanjeev right now. Hi, Sanjeev. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
So good to have you. Where are you?
I'm actually in Brampton, just outside Toronto, about 30 minutes outside Toronto.
Oh, I grew up on the other side of the lake. I grew up on the snowy side of the lake. Yeah. You're on the cold side of the lake. I was on the snowy side. Yeah. So wonderful. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're a doctor, but you seem to have a lot of interest in things outside of conventional medicine, I should say.
Yeah, I'm trained as a family physician, and the reason I actually went into family physician because I couldn't kind of agree on one place of medicine that would basically house all my interests or had all the answers to everything. So family medicine was the most general aspect of training that I could attend, so I could still pursue all the various interests that I have. And over the years, I've really tried to understand, what are the latest things that we can do to kind of, address health problems in people. Like that's really been my mission in life. And in the last few years, my mission to, slow or reverse aging has become paramount, because I think this is by far the biggest problem that could alleviate, if we could fix that, we could alleviate the most suffering in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think for so many reasons, increasing my goal, Sanjeev, is to equate my health span with my lifespan. Right. I want like a 24-hour difference between those two.
But hopefully the lifespan is at least a good length.
Yes. Well, yes. I don't race cars or anything, so we don't want that.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a particular interest in something that I've heard this called a couple different things, either therapeutic plasma exchange or plasmapheresis.
Yes.
I believe they're the same thing.
Yes.
Tell me, what is this?
It's therapeutic plasma exchange or plasmapheresis. So the word plasmapheresis means plasma, which is a very particular component of your blood. It's the clear part of your blood. So if you were to like spin your blood down in a centrifuge, you would see that it would break down into a couple of different layers. The first layer would be a dark red layer, which would be all the red blood cells. And then there would be a whitish layer, which would be the white blood cells, and then there would be a clear kind of yellowy, almost urine-looking color, which would be your plasma. And so plasmapheresis refers to this treatment of removing plasma from your body, because pheresis means to remove. So okay. That treatment of plasmapheresis, also known as therapeutic plasma exchange, has been around for 30 years in hospitals. It is an FDA approved treatment. It's being used very successfully for illnesses of usually autoimmune illnesses. So if people come in for, let's say, Guillain-Barré syndrome, or like out of control immune system disorders, or even illnesses such as a very, very high amount of cholesterol, for example, they were using therapeutic plasma exchange to basically remove that parts of the plasma which had all these, hyperactive immune molecules, and as a treatment for those conditions.
Now, my recollection is that way back, I think in the 60s, it was the two mice, right? Was that right? The old mouse and the young mouse, and they shared the blood supply?
Actually, so how did we actually get to the idea that plasmapheresis could be beneficial for aging? Well, I think it was actually a landmark paper by Irina Conboy, and it was published in 2005. So actually, it's not been as long, but 20 years or so. But in that, what she did in that study was that it's called heterochronic parabiosis. And what they did was they connected the blood supply of an old mouse with the young mouse. So they basically just connected the two bodies of these mouse together. And they're sharing the same blood supply. And it was really remarkable how the old mouse basically became younger. Like, so it started looking younger. The hair of the mouse started to become brown instead of white. It lost weight. Around the liver, it lost fat. It increased its muscle strength. And that the young mouse actually became a bit older. So
are you suggesting we become vampires?
Well, that's the thing. So after this study, it's very funny. I did post a couple of things on TikTok, and I realized this could actually lead to a whole bunch of problems, because people can take that study and all of a sudden think, hey, we need to start drinking the blood of young people. And I did get a whole bunch of conspiracy theorists come on my TikTok channel, and even though they're promoting this video, they're promoting it for the reason of, hey, this is now evidence that, I know, celebs are like drinking the blood of children or something. Like, it's crazy. Crazy.
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time. Yeah, we know that. Yeah.
But anyways, there's some truth to the idea that there is obviously, that study was either telling us that there's something about young blood that potentially causes rejuvenation, or the second part is I'm going to talk about, there's something about the removal of old blood that is actually causing the rejuvenation. But after that study, you started seeing a lot of people thinking about getting young blood transfusions like this. And there was a company out there, Ambrosia, that had come out, and I think in California or whatever, that they were going to sell these young blood transfusions and make, and help with the aging process. But it unfortunately didn't turn out as well. I mean, basically, those studies didn't exactly show that giving young blood was that beneficial. It didn't exactly have the same impact as what those two mice were showing. And so then that kind of made people think that it's more than just giving young blood to an older person.
Well, and my recollection is the FDA shut that company down.
There's lots of problems with giving young blood. I mean, it's not that simple.
Huge.
Not a simple issue. I mean, how do you how do you prevent reactions and, taking somebody else's blood at risk of infections and all that?
Yes.
It's an area fraught with a lot more of danger and needs a lot more science before they would be allowed to do something like that.
So, but what we're talking about is something very different.
So what we're talking about is that even though that study was showing the mixing of the blood between a young mouse and old mouse caused benefit in that old mouse, it looks to me from subsequent studies that it was really the dilution of the old blood. So, and that's what plasmapheresis is doing. Plasmapheresis is all it's doing is simply removing your plasma and replacing it with saline and albumin, 5% albumin, which basically approximates what your plasma's albumin concentration is anyways. So we're basically giving like a clear fluid. We're taking out the plasma, we're throwing in the garbage, and we're replacing it with a clear fluid until your body's going to make some more plasma, which it will do within, a few days or a week or so. It will make rapidly new plasma. And hopefully that plasma will be much, it'll be in effect a more youthful profile, than what you gave up.
And what's the machine that's doing? Is this the same as like a dialysis machine, or
it looks very much like a dialysis machine? When you're hooked up, and I've seen any pictures of it, but basically from one arm you're taking the blood out from the body, and and then that's going through the machine's separating out the plasma and the red blood cells, and it's adding in then in the other arm, it's bringing back those red blood cells with some plasma, with some saline and albumin, and some anticoagulants so you don't clot your blood, and then bringing it back through the other arm. So it's happening, simultaneously. Like it's removing blood, replacing it, and putting it back through the other arm. So you're never really, losing volume in effect. Like you remain the same volume of blood. Because imagine if you were to, our whole blood volume is about 6 liters. Mm-hmm. If we were to remove 2 liters of plasma, is what we normally do, person would die. Like, they have a crash of their blood pressure because they need a certain amount of fluid to be alive.
And how much fluid, like if we have a total of 6 liters, how much volume are you taking out? Because I'm guessing that as the new plasma removed blood comes in, you're sort of dilution. So how much do we have to cycle through?
I think you got to pretty much, we normally what we call it one exchange. One exchange means that one full volume exchange of your body. So in effect, that would be like almost all your blood is circulating through, like 6 liters is circulating through, and plasma is maybe 40% of your blood. And so the idea of a one exchange is that we're removing all your plasma.
Okay.
In that treatment. Maybe a few hundred mils is remaining, but in effect it's being all removed.
I think what caught my attention was the change in cognitive function.
Yes.
So people who have dementia or how that impacts Alzheimer's or may actually prevent Alzheimer's. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, this is actually why I actually became interested in this therapy, because I actually, have a huge interest in brain health. And unfortunately, I've been blessed with a 3/4 ApoE. So, and a number of, relatives who have dementia in their 80s. So, I'm particularly concerned about what can we do to prevent that in myself and in my loved ones. And so this is, pretty remarkable. Like, if anything, this might be the only thing out there that has had that much impact on dementia. And there was a trial, it's called the AMBAR trial, multi-center trial, across the US and I think in perhaps Spain, where they randomized about 400 plus people to receive the therapeutic plasma exchange over a year. They were received, I think, initially for the first 6 weeks, they got it weekly. And then after that, they got it monthly. And after a year, it was pretty remarkable. There was a trend. Again, it's not unable to completely prove it to statistical significance, but the mild Alzheimer's actually reversed. The moderate Alzheimer's stabilized. So, this is a pretty remarkable result that in humans, they were able to show these type of benefits.
And how are they measuring that by they're doing brain scans or
they did do brain scans? I'm pretty sure they looked at brain scan, and they also did some cognitive testing, like they did these scales to check how well are people remembering things and to test their memory and so on and so forth. And that's how they were.
Any other measurable physiological changes in the people in that AMBAR study?
Not that I'm aware of. I'd have to go through that, but I think it was primarily looking at, only brain they were looking at. But, in animals, mice, they have seen definite improvements in mice, specifically neuroinflammation, because we know that Alzheimer's is really caused by inflammation and lack of ability to detoxify the brain. The glial cells are not working as well. The glial system's not working as well. So in effect, that's causing more and more inflammation. And people who have an ApoE4 are actually not, in effect, clearing the amyloid. So it's causing it to build up. So in animals, we have, pretty good signs that this is, causing less neuroinflammation. In muscles, it looks like there's going to be more stem cells, more regeneration. In liver, it also looks like there's definite improvements happening in the liver. So we have good evidence in animals. In humans, we don't have as many studies yet. And that's what we're doing in our clinic here in Toronto, is that we are doing a trial looking at plasmapheresis every 3 months. And, relatively healthy people, 50s and 60s, and we're checking their DNA methylation age. And to see what impact is it having.
Yeah. Do you have any test results on that?
Well, I mean, we haven't published any results. Whatever we have seen, yes, there's a decrease in DNA methylation age. But from other doctors I've talked to, they have definitely seen quite substantial age, reductions in DNA methylation age. Now, whether that impacts on the phenotypic improvements, we don't know yet. People may be feeling better. It's a bit difficult for me. I don't have enough length of time to kind of comment on that. But the science looks really good. There was a recent paper by Dr. Convoy where they looked at the protein structure, like the protein composition of humans, before and after these plasmapheresis treatments. And what they found was that there was definitely increase in certain types of proteins and decrease in certain type of proteins. And it more began to resemble a younger person.
So help me out here, Sanjeev. What's happening? What's being removed that allows the other cells to work better?
Well, it's three different, possible mechanisms, at least that people think about. One is that, so as one of the things that therapeutic plasma exchange is reducing cell senescence. So that's one thing. Okay, so which we can talk about what is senescence. The next thing is that it's, like I mentioned before, is that our immune system is also aging. And it looks like therapeutic plasma exchange could be reducing the age of the immune system. That might be the key. One of the key things that are happening in aging is the immune system is aging. And the third thing is that, and again, all these three things are tied together, is that inflammation, systemic chronic inflammation is decreasing. And that's what therapeutic plasma exchange is doing, because again, inflammation seems to be a key driver of aging. We can take a step back. So senescence, what is happening in senescence? I'm not sure how much your viewers are hearing about this, but basically as time is going on, cells reach a point where they can't divide any further. They go into a kind of a cell arrest. One of the stages of their cell cycles, they enter a rest stage where they can't divide any further. And this is an adaptational mechanism. This, has some purpose, some good purpose. Like whenever we have an injury, these type of cells will secrete, molecules to heal the injury. But over time, if you have too many, and just with living, more and more cells start to produce these types of inflammatory molecules, which we call SASP, senescence-associated secretory phenotype molecules. And these are like pro-inflammatory molecules that these senescent cells are releasing out into the environment, sending a signal to all the nearby cells that, hey, it's time to become inflamed, and it's time, that things are dying. I'm close to death, and it's kind of sending a signal everywhere. So the more and more that these SASP is around, it's been linked to aging. Now, interestingly, there are a whole bunch of supplements out there. I'm not sure. Again, this may be coming up on some other speakers. That these are called senolytics. Senolytics are these supplements such as fisetin, quercetin. These are like molecules and food supplements that may be actually killing some of these senescent cells. And there are some studies that by killing senescent cells, that improves the health of the organism. There's been some studies in mice, for example. There was just unfortunately a study that showed that a senolytic did not improve osteoarthritis. So the jury's still out on what does this look like? What are these types of molecules? But interestingly, TPE reduces SASP all across the board, way more than any senolytic could do that.
So I've heard this described as, I think it was one of the folks that you spoke to, talking about if you have a culture and you change the medium in the culture,
Yes.
you will change what happens to the cells that are in the culture. They can grow faster or slower. And is this, since blood is like essentially our medium, and we're sort of doing an oil change on the blood, increasing the quality of the medium, then the function of all the cells goes up. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, I like that's a good analogy, and I like to use, or metaphor. I like to use the soup base when I talk to my clients, that we're basically changing the base of the soup, and because what's happening is that cells are constantly communicating with each other with all types of growth factors and cytokines and all sorts. They're sending messages. But if those messages are being sent, like I told you, these stats are sending messages that, hey, things are really bad and you're getting older, that's going to then influence how these cells are acting. But if you, again, change the milieu, the base of which these cells are living in, and bring it back down to a more youthful stage, then those cells behave like they're younger. And they in effect release molecules that, because they're in a different manner. And I think the studies have borne that out, is that, when cells are put again around in after TPE, they just seem to have a different characteristic. And then those organisms tend to do better. Again, in animal models.
Yeah. This a different kind of animal, Keith Richards. I recall stories like 20 years ago, Keith Richards going to Switzerland, getting his blood washed. Yeah. And I'm wondering if this is what he was doing. He's still alive, and which is remarkable.
Yeah. No, it's very, I'm sure this has been happening. I mean, people have always wondered, people who are donating blood, for example, how come people who are donating blood tend to be healthier?
So talk to me about that. So here's like a really cheap, zero cost, and fast cash positive way of doing this. Is you donate blood, you just reduce the whole volume, and then your body makes more. Is that, would that work?
In effect, it's like a very minor plasmapheresis. But if you were to do it very frequently, you'd probably have some benefits, because the same thing is happening. You're removing some red blood cells, but you're going to also remove some plasma at the same time. So, you're going to have that type of benefit of getting your body to produce new plasma that hopefully will be more youthful.
I have a whole new take on blood donation. The next time the Red Cross comes around, hook me up. Tell me, so what's the cost on something like this?
Yeah, generally, I can tell that we charge about between $5,000 to $7,000 a treatment, and
per treatment. And wait,
and that's Canadian, by the way.
And that's like you mentioned in the beginning. What was it? Once a week for 6 weeks, and then monthly?
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing those types of treatments because those were people who were quite severely had Alzheimer's treatments. And we have done treatments, once every 2 weeks or so. We're looking at once every 3 months. Mm-hmm. There are certain patients with dementia, I would say once a month, but our study is really looking at what is that ideal time frame. Nobody really knows how frequently it needs to be done, because nobody knows at what stage does it come back. Does your blood revert back to the way it used to be? And my guess, it's every 3 months in a healthy person. But again, this is what these studies need to be done. But, I think this is happening. There are a couple of places that are doing the US as well. And most people are doing it every couple of months. That seems to be the frequency. And the cost seems to be about the same, maybe in US dollars, $7,000 or so. I've heard maybe even $10,000, maybe a bit more expensive. And the procedure takes about 3 hours.
And what are the, we should say, off-target effects you've seen? What are the counterindications? Like what can go wrong here?
Like I said, this treatment's been around for about 30 years. So it's relatively quite a safe procedure. One of the things you do need to have is at least 2 good veins. Some people don't have good veins, and then that becomes very difficult to do this type of treatment. And then what can go wrong is that, some people can get some side effects from having low calcium. And so this is why, we do some things to prevent that in the treatment. But again, this is very safe. It's people have known for very long how to do these treatments safely. Potentially, we give an anticoagulant, like something so your blood doesn't clot. But again, if something was not done properly, or the provider's doing this without experience, it could potentially cause a clot, to happen somewhere in the body because they didn't give the proper anticoagulant or so on and so forth. You could potentially have infection. That's, anytime you introduce any type of foreign needle into the body, again, it's low. These are very low because these are, happening on your arms. So it's not like on your, in the hospital, people sometimes take blood from your neck or something, which could be much more dangerous. But in this case, use your arms. So, relatively safe. And that's what I mean, why I think TPE has a good promise, because it's not like taking young blood, which has a lot of risks. A lot of potential things can happen, allergic reactions and so on and so forth. We're adding saline and albumin. These are pretty inert substances that don't cause, any type of problem.
And are you stacking this with anything else? So that, anytime I hear anything about brain, I think about hyperbaric oxygen.
Yes.
Are people?
Yeah, I'm not doing. We're actually going to open our hyperbaric oxygen therapy center here in the next 2-3 months. So I'm not doing it at this stage. I think it probably does have value. I think it looks like that would be a good way of doing things. I think potentially also there are people who are offering exosomes. I'm not sure how much you're familiar with exosomes, but exosomes are I could call it the inside of a stem cell. Inside of a stem cell that carries all the growth factors and cytokines and so on and so forth that promote healing. Now, this is not an FDA approved treatment. Exosomes are not FDA approved to inject into people at this stage, but FDA has approved exosomes for topical application, skin conditions, so on and so forth, healing. But so I think that there may be definitely promise there on the use of these types of compounds on top of plasmapheresis.
And so additional to therapeutic plasma exchange, plasmapheresis, what else are you seeing out there that is of interest to you? Do you think might have some efficacy worth investigating?
Yeah, I just mentioned, I think these exosomes are quite interesting because they don't carry like stem cells. Stem cells are actual live cells, and again, they carry the risks of reactions and so on and so forth, whereas exosomes are not as risky. I think that's quite a big area. I think, to be honest, we're still at the stage of understanding what is happening with aging. And I think the testing is really important right now, like to understanding what are the biomarkers that can actually tell us what is happening in the body. Like, and that's, I did mention that, DNA methylation clocks, and there's probably clocks on various parts of the body. And I know that they can even see DNA methylation changes on how much alcohol you've had in your life and how much smoking exposure and things like that. So I think there's lots more for us to understand about what's going on with the body. And then as well as what does the age of the immune system look like? How can we monitor that? What are the biomarkers to look at that? And we use a test called the glycan age here in our practice. I'm not sure if you've had somebody on from them, but they can provide you an age of the immune system based on these glycans that attach to the IgG molecule. So I'm really excited about TP. This is why spending a great deal of my time on it because, again, my mission is to stop and reverse aging. And at this moment, that seems to be by far the most exciting thing that's out there. What I do think is that...
Have you done it, though? I mean, have you done it yourself?
I've done it 5 times.
And okay, awesome.
Yeah, I've done it 5 times. Yeah.
What happened?
I mean,
smarter, stronger, younger.
Yeah, I'm in pretty great health. I mean, I don't know, 52 years old, so I'm doing pretty good. And my DNA methylation age has decreased a bit. I wouldn't say it's like gone huge down, but it's definitely decreased a bit, or it hasn't increased. And the first time I did it, I actually had Lyme disease, I was really sick. So I traveled all the way down to see Dr. Hasse in Nashville, outside Nashville, to have it done. And I just completely recovered. So it was quite a remarkable thing, because sometimes people with Lyme disease can.
Yeah. So you had one treatment of TPE and that took care of your Lyme disease. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Well, actually I did 2 treatments, 3 days apart.
Okay.
And again, I was quite sick. Again, all that stuff is sitting in the plasma, all the immune reactions and so on and so forth. And it seemed to have completely cleared me. I recovered, and they couldn't find any evidence of this, but I was extremely sick. I had a tick bite. I was quite ill. So,
wow. That's a big deal, though. I mean, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are suffering from Lyme disease and don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And what you just told me is you did 2 treatments and gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like an incredible
thing
for me. I've had people talk about, I've seen the dementia improve on some people after treatment. So that
I want to go back to you again, because I'm really interested in this.
Yeah.
So you went down, you did 2 treatments for your Lyme, and then Lyme went away, and then you've done 3 subsequent.
Yeah. I try to do it every 3-4 months. I try to do a treatment because, again, I'm trying to follow this protocol that we're doing in our office to understand what's the ideal frequency of this treatment.
Okay. And what has happened with the 3 subsequent ones?
Yeah, no, I think I'm in superb health. So I have no concerns. So, and like my DNA methylation age is, if anything, it's remaining, like it's not increasing, which is, what happened with time. Everything looking good.
By any other biomarkers move? Any other sort of physiological changes?
From what is regular testing that is available out there, everything looks great. We are storing the plasma to look at a protein analysis. We're going to be working hopefully with some researchers to look at a bit more subtle things that'd be impossible to see in a regular blood test. But like I said, I have this history of risk of Alzheimer's. So for me, it's a long game. Like, it's not a game to see that, hey, something's going to happen like this year or next year. It's about a 10-year. It's a 10-year project to see if we can prevent Alzheimer's.
And so you now have a lot of experience with this, and I know that people like I'm 64. There are a lot of people in the audience that are sort of like 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And really the idea of dementia, Alzheimer's, these sort of things, cognitive problems are in our parents.
Exactly.
That are possibly, maybe becoming symptomatic. What's your thought on that? As far as prevention, or I guess you mentioned in mild onset, you said the results, but I'm guessing moderate and severe, not so much.
Well, the study showed that moderate or Alzheimer's stabilized after a year. So again, it was a randomized trial. So they're comparing it to people who didn't get the treatment, and the moderate people stabilized. So yeah, the important thing here to note is that, hey, this is the sooner you do it, the better. Like, Alzheimer's is not something that just happened to you in 1 or 2 years. It's something that's been going on for 20 years. So one has to probably begin as soon as they find out they have the risk, or they have to take actions. And this is one of those things. There may be other supplements. I also recommend some plasmalogen supplements. There's certain type of fats that one could take, but But for TPE looks to be by far the best option out there at today's science. And it could be that we may come up with a better way of doing it, or we might say, hey, like it needs to be ideally this frequency,
right?
And the study just did it once a month, but maybe it needs to be something different. Like maybe it just needs to be a half transfusion. It doesn't need to be a full. Maybe it needs to be half every 2 weeks. We just don't know that answer yet.
Yeah, frequency and durability equate to cost effectiveness and figuring that out. So my wife would disagree, but I feel like I have pretty good cognitive health.
Yeah.
I've become selectively cognitively healthy around certain things. But so someone who's 50s and 60s, I don't want Alzheimer's dementia. So, wondering at what point does this become, like a $7,000 treatment a few times a year that's out of range. But, at what point does this become more accessible? And if we're using machines that are similar to dialysis machines, there's a lot of dialysis machines in the world. There are a lot of dialysis clinics. Mm-hmm. So, do you foresee something like that happening whereby it's like, okay, well, along with my physical, I get, plasmapheresis. Yeah, I go in for TPE once a month.
I think it's coming. I think you're seeing a number of clinics opening up. I mean, some of the cost issues has to do with the fact that, it's a lot of this is all done in a kind of they have to collect the research, like they have to collect the blood, test it out, and be part of a trial. I mean, normally that's what we're doing, and that increases the cost. But doesn't, I suspect, the cost will probably come down by 50%, as time goes on, because there's a certain fixed amount of cost from the equipment and the machine, but it's not that amount. It's not.
So here, I'm going to ask you to do a cost benefit analysis for me. So, I know the people at Aviv in Tel Aviv, so they've got they do all the hyperbaric oxygen, stuff, which I've seen the brain scans. They're incredibly effective.
Right.
That's $40,000, 6 weeks, and I think you're in the tank like 2 or 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks.
Right.
And it seems like it has about, my recollection is that the longest they've gone on is like a year. It seems like pretty good durability. So if I ask you, I say, okay, I just found a bag of cash. It's $40,000. I think I want to be preventative with my brain. Should I go and do, I guess that comes out to about 6 TPE treatments, or should I fly myself to Iberzural and, have Shai Afrazi put me in the tank and give him my $40,000? Which is better?
Interesting. I mean, I don't know if I'm biased, but I'd probably go with the TPE just because the science looks very, very strong. Like the science is not just, one study. This multiple studies of animals of showing that it's rejuvenating the whole body. So and I can't see how oxygen can do all of that. Like sure it can help with healing, but I haven't seen the science of, why would oxygen do that type of rejuvenation. Potentially, I guess potentially even could even speed up like reactions and speed up potential aging, though it's healing, but it may, will it actually reverse age? I don't know. Even though their study looked at telomeres and how telomeres lengthened.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So I have a couple of concerns. And the other thing is that 3 hours a day is a lot of time. Like who can constantly
it's six weeks of your life.
Yeah, who can do that? So I think that again, you could do. We don't know the exact ideal framework, but hey, I think that it looks to be that you don't have to do TPE that often to have the benefits. So there may be other benefits we haven't even figured out yet that they're gonna show up with TPE.
I mean, it would. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. Don't listen to me for medical advice. But I mean, it makes sense to me that if you take this analogy of you're changing the medium in the dish, and the main thing that you're the dish is not just the blood in your brain; it's your whole body, your all your cells, all your organs.
Yes,
that it would make sense that there would be increased functionality of everything, your immune system, everything.
Yeah. That's exactly the point. That's it. It's not the brain is not separate from the rest of the body. So the brain is being rejuvenated, the rest of the body is being rejuvenated, and we're seeing it in animals. So it's just because the interest has been on the brain. That's why you're seeing the results there. Doesn't mean it's not happening everywhere else. And we have, it's proven that the proteins and all that come back to a youthful level. I haven't seen that in a hyperbaric. No one's done that study. Yeah,
I would be curious to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just say if they could show that, then hey, that would be amazing. If they can show that repeated things bring your body, your proteins and all that back to a youthful profile, and that's an amazing result.
I mean, from what I've talked to a number of hyperbaric people, and I think for traumatic brain injury, that's the way to go. I think it's like fantastic. What I would be very interested in with therapeutic plasma exchange is looking at liver function, kidney function, muscle biopsies, simple physiological tests like grip strength, stuff like that. What to see like how global within the body the effect of this is. It's still I don't, maybe you understand better. I don't fully understand what it is that's being removed that allows all these other things to function better. But maybe I don't need to understand that. I just need to know that this seems to work.
Yeah, and that's it. I think the science is not. We don't have understanding fully of what. Like I did mention that we have the names of what these proteins that are being upregulated and downregulated, but we don't know what actually they all do. We don't actually understand all that. But we have a general understanding that these SASPs are being reduced, and these SASPs contribute to aging. We understand that, and we understand that the immune system goes into a more youthful stage. I was mentioning the second impact of that immunosenescence decreases, and because as we get older, the ratios of certain type of immune cells changes, and it allows us to not be resistant to certain types of infections like COVID, for example. But if we see that immune system goes back to a more youthful state, that it seems like that's going to result in a better quality of life. Like it seems like that's what's going to happen. And then third, the inflammation aspect is that that the TPE looks to be like reducing chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation is one of the markers of aging. Yeah, so I think all of these things kind of point to that there's looks to be pretty impressive results and great potential for even more.
When do you anticipate finishing the study that you're doing?
Yeah, the study I'm doing is going to take about 2 years, because we're looking over a 2-year horizon of every 3 months to see what happens when you give somebody TPE every 3 months for 2 years, and what changes happen. I think you need to give that long a time. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How many people in your study?
We're hoping to enroll 100 people. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 100 people, 2 years. That's a lot of data.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to get there. Yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens.
Wonderful, Sanjeev. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what would they do?
I have a website, peakhuman.ca, and they can probably just message me on the website, or they could send me an email to Dr. Goel at peakhuman.ca. So DRGOEL at peakhuman.ca. And any of my other might see me online somewhere and just message me or something. That'd be great. That's the way. I
want to be a peak human.
Yeah, please. I would love to take care of you. I think this is exciting times. It's an amazing time to be a human in this world, and when technology is moving so quickly, there may be hope for us to, what they call us, get past, what's it called, escape velocity.
Velocity, yes.
Yeah, to make it that we could actually reverse it. Not age as fast as we're living. I don't know. It'd be great. Let's see. It's possible.
I read some quote from I think it was somebody in the transhumanist crowd saying that why do we think aging has to happen in one direction? And I thought, well, because it always does everything I see. But who knows? Maybe we change that.
No, we've seen it with animals. We've seen that these things can happen. So I think things are moving at a very fast pace. It's quite an exciting time. I think you never know. My mission could be accomplished in this lifetime. Let's see.
I hope so. I think it'd be great for a lot of people. So, Sanjeev, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the work that you're doing. I look forward to seeing the results of the study, and when the cost comes down, you can have some of my albumin. My plasma, you can.
Sounds good. I'm here, and feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much for being allowed to be a guest on your podcast. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you, Sanjeev. It's been great speaking. Really exciting work that you're doing. This is the point of the program where we do Just Try This, and we're going to get with that in just a second after a quick word from one of our sponsors. Today's show is also brought to you by Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker is the dashboard to your inner health. We talk about this a lot, about metrics, what matters, biomarkers. The thing is, you can't take actions on things that you don't know about, and what you don't know about can hurt you. I use Inside Tracker. I take their ultimate test 4 times a year. I look at their biomarkers. I see what's moving from quarter to quarter, so I can see if I've made changes in my program and my diet. Is there something that I need to adjust? And their food first, supplement second recommendations are great. I always share the results with my doctor, and if there's something we need to go over, we do that. Go to insidetracker.com/ageist. Save 20% on all their products. This week on Just Try This, I'm going to share a little breathing technique that I learned from John Foley, who is a former Blue Angels pilot. He was actually one of the guys who flew the planes in the first Top Gun. So, interesting guy. But anyway, what he told me was, he told me a lot of sort of breathing techniques to upregulate and downregulate your central nervous system. And this one is really simple. What it is 2 quick breaths in through the nose and then a long exhale through the mouth. And you do 5 of these. So it goes like this. 2 inhales and then long exhale. 2 inhales, long exhale. So you do that about 5 or 6 times. And what it does is it signals to your body like sort of an all clear thing where it activates your parasympathetic nervous system where you can calm down. And I've been using this a lot lately, especially after I come off of a ski run and my body's really cranked up. I do that a few times and then everything mellows out and I can go do it again. So try that. 2 inhales, 1 long exhale. You can do it as many times as you want during the day. You can do it in your car. You can do it before a meeting. You can do it after a meeting. And, just try this. Thank you for joining us on the show today. We really appreciate your time and your attention. And if you enjoyed the show today, the best way to help us is to share the show with someone else. Say, hey, there's this great thing. You should listen to this. You also have the opportunity, as you know, to leave up to a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this show. You can also leave us a comment. We love comments. If you have any questions for me or any of the guests we've had on the show, hit me up, david@superage.com. Everyone, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week with another great guest.